In this video, we're going to discuss one of the four types of conic sections, circles. We are going to talk about how circles are defined geometrically and algebraically, and then we're going to look at some examples. A circle is a set of all points in the plane that are a fixed distance, called the radius, from a fixed point, called the center, in the plane. This is how we geometrically define a circle. If we look at a circle with center at the origin 0, 0, and with a radius r, we can derive the formula for the circle. Using the picture on the left, we can see that by drawing the radius from the origin to a point xy on the circle, we can form a right triangle. Then, using the Pythagorean theorem, we have side adjacent squared, so we have x squared plus side opposite squared, or y squared, equals our hypotenuse squared, or r squared. So we define the circle algebraically by the equation x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So now let's look at what happens to the equation when our center is at a point hk instead of the origin. So if we now have our center here at h comma k, that means that we have traveled an x distance of h to reach that point and a y distance of k to reach that point. If we then have a point on our circle x comma y, that means in order to reach that point, we have traveled this distance x and this distance y. So in forming our right triangle, here we now have x minus h and y minus k, and of course our hypotenuse is still that radius r. So again, we can form this right triangle and use the Pythagorean theorem. The side adjacent x minus h squared plus the side opposite y minus k squared equals our hypotenuse r squared. So we now have this formula for our final equation for a circle with center h comma k and radius r is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So now let's look at our first example. We have x plus 2 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 16 squared. Remember that the equation in standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So first, let's rewrite our example in standard form. And in doing this, we're going to get x minus, and since we have a plus 2 here and we need a minus, we're going to need a minus 2 to make that a plus, quantity squared, plus y minus k, which here we already have y minus 5, so that's going to stay the same, equals r squared, and we have 16, so the square root of 16 gives us 4 squared. So now we can easily see that our center h comma k is going to equal negative 2 comma 5, and our radius is going to equal 4. So then it also asks us to graph. So we're going to come over here to our blank graph, and we're going to go to negative 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's our center. And then we need a radius of 4. So we're going to go in every direction 4. So we're going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1, 2, 3, 4, to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to allow us to more easily draw our circle connecting all of those dots. So now we have our center at -2, 5, and our radius of 4. Here's our last example. Again, it asks us to find the center and radius of the circle and then graph it. However, our last example is in general form, so we must complete the square in order to get it into standard form. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite it with all of my x's together. So I have x squared plus 2x, and I'm going to leave a blank for myself in order to complete the square. And then all my y's together, y squared plus 6y, again leaving a blank for myself to complete the square. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this -15 over to the other side, so that's going to give me a +15. So if you recall, in order to complete the square, we want to take the middle term and we want to divide that by 2, which here we have 2 divided by 2, that gives me 1. And then I want to square it, so 1 squared is still 1. Again, taking the middle term over here, dividing that by 2, that gives me 3. And then I want to square that, and that gives me 9. And whatever I do to the left side of my equation, I have to do to the right side of my equation. So over here I have to add 1 and then add 9. In completing the square, I'm going to have x, and then I'm going to have whatever my middle term divided by 2 was. So in this case I had a +1. So I have that term squared plus y, again, whatever my middle term was divided by 2, which in this case was 3. So I have that term squared. And that's going to equal 15 plus 1 plus 9, which is 25. And again, my standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So here, h comma k, my center, is going to be -1 comma -3, because I have the addition signs, but I need them to be minus signs in standard form, so I have to have both h and k to be negative. And then my radius is the square root of 25, which is 5. So now we're going to graph that. We have -1 comma -3. Here's my center, and again I'm going to go out 5 in every direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, and then connect all of those dots to form my circle. So there you have it. That's all you really need to know about circles. Keep in mind, if your center is at the origin, the equation is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. If your center is instead at some point h comma k, your equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared.